Hello friend, and welcome back to Betta Days. Today is going to be very interesting and a little bit different because we are going to look at whether or not WikiHow knows how to take care of bettas. You may be familiar with this site. WikiHow is a place that people can go and learn how to do pretty much anything. They just go to the top, type in the search bar whatever they want, and then boom, there's an entire article, sometimes articles, on how to do that exact thing, usually with a generous sprinkling of images to go along with it. Now, I don't know if you remember this or not, but around 4-ish years ago, there was actually a trend going around where people would look up just odd things on WikiHow, and they would find articles that were funny, or they would find photos that weren't necessarily true or that were just kind of comical, and then they would make funny little videos out of it. And ever since then, WikiHow has just kind of been on the back of my mind, but when I was looking up how to take care of bettas, I was looking for a few articles to share with a friend. This one popped up. My hope with this video is not only to provide you with entertainment, but also to inform you. I am hoping that they are correct on a lot of things, but if they are incorrect, then we will correct those facts. And this can also be a sort of how to care for your betta video. So first we see how to take care of a betta fish. It's at the top. Do some initial background research. There is a lot to know about betta fish, even beyond the basics just outlined. In general, large box stores aren't in the business of providing detailed information unless you happen to strike a betta enthusiast salesperson. As well as having the basic understanding of betta outlined above, you might consider researching more details about the betta fish online or specific sites. I like this step. This is very true. Sometimes when you are getting a betta, a lot of people find it obvious, but others just don't know that you really should be doing your own research. You really cannot just waltz into a big box pet store and say, hey, tell me everything I need to know about this fish, tell me everything I need to get. A lot of people are going to just have false information because they themselves don't own a betta, or if they do, they've never just been properly educated. So it is important, and WikiHow is very right about this step. Here we go. Number 2, I see a 2.5 gallon tank image right here, so we may need to get a little bit more into this in a minute, but let's read what the description has to say. Beyond the care requirements, please be aware that what you are getting into before you buy a betta fish. Know that these fish can live up to 5 years under the proper care. That is true, although I will tell you that it is not common. For me, the longest I've had a betta is around 2.5 to 3 years. I know I have heard of a few people that have had a betta longer and closer to 5 years or even over, but it's not very common. The absolute minimum size for a betta fish is 2.5 gallons with a heater and filter. Although if you have a bigger tank, you don't have to do as many water changes. That is right. So the bigger the tank, the longer you can go in between water changes. I like to have 5 to 10 gallons. Now here they're recommending the minimum size being 2.5. And while it's better than a bowl, it's better than a vase, I don't recommend it. I do recommend a minimum of 5 gallons. Some people still say that's too small, but if you just have one betta in there with some nice plants and natural decor, 5 gallons is okay. It's all right. I do know some people that have their bettas in 2.5 gallon tanks. However, the catch here is that they're elderly bettas. They don't swim around as much anymore. They're not as active. So elderly bettas, they don't move around a lot. They rest a lot more. So that's really the only time that I have seen or heard from someone experienced that they have their bettas in that size of a tank and they're happy. They're just older. If you have a young, spry betta, you need a bigger tank. They need space to swim around and be happy. It's really going to contribute greatly to their health. Ooh, I see a picture of a bigger tank in a stand. I like that. Understand the proper environment for a betta. The best room for a betta tank is one that is calm, quiet, and off limits to pets that are a risk for bettas. That's actually a really great point, and I don't usually talk about this, but if you do have other pets, especially birds or cats, they tend to be drawn towards containers with water and fish in general. I don't know why. Now, some people will actually allow their cats to drink from their fish's water and their birds to swim around in it, but really, that can be dangerous to both of them. I won't get into the details because that would make this video incredibly long, but you probably get an idea. The tank could be placed on a sturdy level surface to prevent the tank from spilling over, and there should be outlets nearby to plug the heaters and filters into. Yeah, that's important. When you're placing a tank, make sure you have at least one outlet because probably going to need one of those boards that plug into an outlet that gives you about 10 or more slots. I mean, not everybody needs that, but for me, with my heater, my light, my sponge filter, and some other things, I need a lot of plugs. So you're gonna need more than just the 2 in an outlet. The tank should be away from things like windows, vents, doors, or humidifiers, as the temperature fluctuations and UV exposure can pose a danger to the health of your betta and encourage harmful algae growth in your tank. Now, I will say here, they make it sound a little more serious than it really is. I have my tank near a window. Every time the sun sets, it shines through the tank. Do I have a lot more algae than I would if the tank was away from a window? Absolutely. But most algae in and of itself is not harmful to your betta. It's just not. You aren't gonna have to worry about it. It's okay if there is algae in the tank. Do you want a lot in there? No. It's not aesthetically pleasing and it is kind of gross sometimes, but it's not as harmful as it sounds here. As far as vents, I don't know. I've never actually worried about that. I think the whole idea with keeping them away from doors, though, is that if, you know, someone wants to open it up, if it's right by a door, maybe they could hit it or harm the tank. I don't know. But that's actually a really good point. That's something I never thought about. See, even I can learn something from WikiHow. Preparing housing for the betta. Here we go. I like this. I actually like the visual. It's very simple, but I do like it. It shows that there are some plants here. There's some nice substrate, and it looks like there's a sponge filter, which is my ideal type of filter. I always recommend it. Prepare your betta's home. Have a proper setup before bringing home your new pet. Yes. That right there, that is one of the most important things that a lot of people skip. They get so excited. They want to get a betta so badly, and they get so excited that they get their betta at the same time as they get a tank, and then they set it up and they put their fish in there. A tank really needs to be set up for at least a month before you get a betta fish, so that your betta, yes, does come into a home that is ready for him. And that's really going to help prevent stress as well. Lots of people skip this step, but it might be a good idea. If you find a fish, to ask a store employee to put it in the back or tuck it out of sight so you can come back for it a few days later. That I can never see happening, especially since the tank really should be set up for a month or so, not a few days. So that, I don't honestly see how that would be possible. Don't place a male betta fish with another male, and don't place a female with a female. Contrary to popular belief, placing girls together called sororities are not all safe and in fact very dangerous and stressful for the fish involved. If you want 2 bettas, don't put them together under any circumstance unless a specific setup of around 50 gallons. They have been selectively bred to have an instinct to fight other individuals of their species to the death, hence getting the name Siamese fighting fish. So actually, as far as I know, they have not been selectively bred to be aggressive. They're just naturally aggressive. I mean, you could put 2 from the wilds together, and I do believe that they would fight each other, because if they're in a small enclosed space, obviously they're going to fight. They can't just separate like they would in the wild. As far as being selectively bred to fight, to have the instinct to fight, that's just natural. That was just placed in them. They weren't selectively bred. They are selectively bred to look as they do today. The bettas that you see in the pet stores, the ones with the big flowing fins and everything and all the different colors, those have been selectively bred to appear different. But as far as their behaviors, they've stayed pretty much the same. The big thing that stood out to me here is the obvious don't place 2 males together or 2 females together or a male and female together. Now, I do know a few people that have successful female betta sororities. Have I tried it? No. So I really can't give any advice on this topic, but it's a highly controversial topic. It really is. A lot of people will recommend against it, and a lot of people will recommend it. But for me, I just say get one betta and roll with it for a while. See what happens. If you are thinking about it, you need to get in contact with someone who has had a successful female sorority for a while and get pointers from them. That's really all I can say about it, because I haven't. And would I ever do it? Not really. No, I'm gonna be honest, it makes me nervous because I feel like more of them fail than succeed, so I don't really want to take that risk. Ooh, here we go. 5+ gallons. Choose a suitable home. In the wild, bettas inhabit Thai rice paddies. Hence, they are suited to living in relatively shallow but large environments. This This is correct. This is good. I like this. To meet the spacious need, consider giving your Betta a new size tank. This will help prolong its life. Pick a tank of 5 gallons or more for your Betta to thrive. It may seem like a lot, but it's what your fish deserves. Yes, now this is correct. And it seems weird because it clashes with what we saw in the beginning when they told us at the top, they told us that it should be a minimum of 2.5, but now they're telling us to pick 5 gallons. So if you're not sure, 5 gallons. Add the necessary equipment. Various equipment is required for the successful keeping of Betta fish. Purchase a heater with the thermostat. Betta fish like water temperatures between 78 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. That is correct, and that's good. Bettas need a heater because they're a tropical fish. That's good. Filters are always necessary, but make sure the current is not too strong. That is very important as well, especially for the longfin varieties. That's huge. Avoid jagged rocks or decorations. Such decorations can easily tear sensitive Betta fish. If there are tears, first check the water quality, as fin rot is often mistaken for tearing. Good. I always recommend that when you are choosing decor, you run your fingers over it if you feel any small spot that could snag a Betta's fins, because I'm telling you, as tough as these fish are, their fins really are not, especially the longfin variety. I actually made a video recently on how to make your longfin Bettas thrive, so I have a bunch of tips on how to keep your longfin Bettas safe, but the biggest tip really is to check the decor. Make sure that the decor does not have rough edges. It's huge, it really is. Live plants are a great idea. They give a more natural look to your tank than fake plants, and Bettas love lounging in the leaves. Live plants also help to oxygenate the water and keep the water cleaner for longer periods of time by absorbing nitrates, which can be harmful to your fish. Yes, correct. All of that is correct and very good. If you want to start and you feel like you aren't sure, maybe you've killed a bunch of plants in the past, I recommend trying Anubis and Java Fern. Those are the hardiest, most beginner-friendly plants. As far as aquatic plants go, I don't have that much experience with them. The ones I've gotten, they've done pretty well. All I've really done is, in Walter's tank, I have a planted substrate. I just stuck them down in there and they're doing well. They have the nutrients they need and they're thriving. So some people may just be more prone to killing plants. It's hard to explain because I've usually been pretty good with plants, but if you just want to know where to start and you maybe don't want plastic plants in your tank, or you want to phase them out and put some new ones in, Java Fern and Anubis are great places to start, especially since they actually have a lot of different varieties. Some are bigger than others, so you can buy the big ones that grow large and tall and you can plant them in the back, and you can use the smaller ones as foreground plants. I'm sorry, but that's funny. They use icons for garden snails in here. That looks like a garden snail. That's not an aquatic snail. But to be fair, they probably didn't have an icon for that to put in the tank. Do research if you are considering adding tank mates. Yes, absolutely. If they'd done their research, they would have known that you can't put garden snails in the tank. I'm sorry, I know that was awful. Betta fish tend to prefer being alone and may kill other fish and even invertebrates if added to the tank. Some calm-tempered fish can coexist with peaceful bottom dwellers like snails or corydoras. Shrimp tend to not be suitable tank mates because Bettas see them as food, and fish with bright colors and long tails can be bullied by your Betta. This is very true. I like all of this. This is good. A lot of people, including myself, just want to keep their Bettas alone in the tank. We like to keep snails. Snails are good. But anything other than that, I stay away from now. I used to have tank mates, but literally every time I got them, they would get nipped, or they would bully my Betta, or they would end up dying mysteriously. It's just not worth it. And honestly, the more fish you have in your tank, the heavier the bio load is. You're going to have to make more water changes on top of that. Some people really like having tank mates in their fish's tank, but I just really don't. So I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to put them in your tank. But if you want fish keeping to be a little bit more laid back, you don't have as much to do, maybe you don't want to spend money on extra fish, that's totally fine. And your Betta will be just fine on his own. Adding water to the tank. Preparing the water, use a quality water conditioner such as Seachem Prime before putting fresh tap water in the tank. The chlorine and chloramines in standard tap water can harm Bettas as well as kill off all that beneficial bacteria housed in the filter. Other sources may suggest aging the water, staining it for a time, but it's best to use a water conditioner, yes. I do recommend that. It's also just faster. You don't have to wait for water to age, I've never done that ever. I just get a good conditioner, water conditioner, and I add that to the water, and then it's ready to go straight into the tank. Here we go. This is good. The parameters should be 0 ppm ammonia, 0 ppm nitrites. Nitrates can be 40, really around 40 ppm and lower, and be totally fine. But I'll be honest, if you have a bunch of live plants in your tank, they will just filter out the nitrates. So your tank is cycled, it's getting the ammonia, which is being turned into nitrites, and those are turned into nitrates, and those are filtered out by your plants. So really, it's great. I've never had to worry about these levels becoming dangerous for my fish. They've always stayed within the safe parameters, but a good way to make sure they are is to get a test kit. It is not a good idea to use distilled bottled water because this deprives your betta of necessary minerals and is not fish safe. Treated tap water is both cheaper and a better alternative. I agree. It absolutely is. Fill your betta's tank. If the tank is without a top cover, fill it about 80% high to ensure your bettas won't leap out. That's good. Whoever wrote this is actually doing very, very well. This is good. Yes, as you can see on both of mine, I leave them lower. Now, Alexander's older, he would never jump. I've never really had a betta that would jump out of the tank, but I always keep it lower. Buying the betta and adding it to the new home. I like the imagery. It's interesting though, because he's holding a container that has 4 together. I guess they're, separated, but that's interesting. I've never seen anything like that. Ooh, here we go. Pick your betta fish. Here's some things to look for. Is the color bright and vivid, or is it very dull? Even if the betta's color is a little pale, it should shine nicely. Yes, it will once you get it into a proper home. Bettas come in a variety of colors, but blues and reds are most common. Yes, definitely. Blue and red are very, very common. Does the betta respond to your movement at all? Does it swim around rapidly when seeing you, or does it merely sit on the bottom and sulk? Don't repeatedly tap the container, as doing so agitates the fish. Instead, try moving your finger back and forth in front of the betta without aggravating it. Yes. That's a big tip. I love doing that. Anytime I go into a pet store and I'm looking for a betta, I will always take my finger and I'll put it at the top and see what the betta does, and I'll move it side to side. I actually have a video somewhere of me doing that, just kind of demonstrating. I can pop that right here if I can find that for you. But that is a really big tip, and that also lets you know whether or not you are choosing a betta that's going to be active and who's going to interact with you more. It's just fun to have an interactive betta. Are its fins in good condition, or are they torn or otherwise damaged? Keep in mind that some breeds have intricate fins, so they might look slightly torn. Crown tails are one variety that naturally appear to be torn, so watch out. Are the betta's eyes in good shape? Do you see any odd lumps on its body? This says parasites, like it can only be parasites, but I'll be honest, it could also be tumors. Some bettas just get tumors, and some are more prone than others. I know that my betta, as he has aged, he actually has a tumor, and there's nothing that I can do about it. There's no medication to treat it. It's just happened as a result of a lot of genetic crossing. It just happens, especially with bettas that have the marbling gene. It's very common. But so if you see any odd lumps, it could be a parasite, but it could also be a tumor. If you see anything out of the ordinary, consider another betta. Sometimes the fish will choose you, not the other way around. This is true. I've heard a lot of friends tell me this. If there is one betta that you are drawn back to repeatedly, unless it is sick or unhealthy, consider buying it. Absolutely. What they're telling you to do right here when you take it home, this is good. First, slowly and carefully add some of your tank water to the container in which you received your betta. Allowing the new water and old water to mix will make the water easier for your fish to adjust to, and this prevents shock. We're going to keep on going a little bit and skip some of it. You can pause this and read all of it if you would like, but I'm going to move on a little bit. Avoid netting a betta if possible, as this can damage the delicate fins. If you need to pick up a betta, try to use a small cup to scoop him or her up with care. Yes, if your betta's in the tank and for whatever reason you need to move him, always get him to the top and take a little cup and just scoop him up. Super easy. When I was little, I used to net fish because that was just kind of common knowledge. You just net the fish you need. That will actually stress them. I mean, seriously, if someone scooped you up in this big blanket and just had you wrapped up, I mean, you'd probably freak out too. So the cup is a much, much easier and stress-free option to move your betta for whatever reason. Now, once you have the water mixed in this cup, if you're acclimating your betta, you can go over to a sink and very carefully pour out a lot of the water so that you're not dumping it into the tank. And once you have the very minimum amount of water in there for your Betta in the cup, just stick him in and slowly lower it into the water and he'll just swim right out. Feeding the Betta. Here we go. I see some bloodworms. Okay. Pick the proper diet for your Betta. Bettas are carnivores. Your Betta's diet should consist of pellets specifically made for feeding Bettas, as well as a variety of other carnivorous foods. Frozen or live brine shrimp or bloodworms are good options. Check the ingredients of Betta-specific pellets and flakes. The first 3 should be protein-based. Experts say that protein in the pellets should be no less than 40%. Honestly, I've never worried about this. What I have kind of worried about is all the fillers that I see in pellets and flakes. All the fillers and all the things that just are not necessary and would never be in a Betta's natural diet. So what I do, I just buy the Omega Carnivore Mix from my local pet store, and I feed that to them a little bit every morning, and that's all I've done. Eventually I got to the point where my Bettas just rejected flakes and pellets, just period. They did not want them at all. So I thought, you know what, the Bettas have spoken. They like this diet better, and honestly, they could not be any healthier. I think I would have done something a little bit different for the photo, and I mean, I'm not going to pick it apart, but if they're telling you in the beginning that you really should have a 5-gallon tank, but then they show a Betta in a bowl, subconsciously, I don't feel like that's probably the best move, just because some people might see that and then just think, oh, okay, a bowl's all right. But that's just me. I just wouldn't have a photo of that. Feed your Betta regularly. Betta fish vary in eating habits from each other, so experiment to see how much food your Betta eats. Honestly, most Bettas are pretty much the same when it comes to feeding time, okay? It's really easy. I will just feed mine once every morning. Now you can do once every other morning if you want to, but once every morning seems to work just fine for me. I thaw out a little bit of their food and I give them several pinches of it. I have had someone recently ask me how to do a more in-depth video on how I feed my Bettas, so I will likely be doing that very, very shortly, so you can keep an eye out on that. I've had a lot of people ask me what I do, so I think it would be helpful to have a video to point them to. But generally, most Bettas' eating habits are the same. The big thing you want to focus on is not overfeeding your Betta. Bettas will eat and eat and eat. They're like dogs. I mean, they would eat until they got sick. So it's helpful to kind of measure how much more your Betta needs by looking at their stomach. That's what I do. And when their stomach is empty, their body is going to be just flat and smooth. It's just going to curve. But if your Betta is eating and he still eats more and more, there's going to be a bit of a bulge, and you will notice it. There will be a little bit of a bulge. That's his stomach getting kind of full, and I stop once there's a considerably noticeable little bulge. I mean, I'll give him about 3 to 4 pinches of food, and that seems to be the sweet spot right there. And when I say their stomachs can get big, I mean it can get big. I've seen seriously swollen Betta stomachs, so you don't want to fill it until it's the size of, let's say, a smallish grate. Feed your Betta until you see a little bit of a bulge, and then they're good. Clean up any extra food that your Betta does not eat. Similarly, watch your Betta to see if he or she spits up any food. This could be a sign that your Betta is a picky eater, or it could also mean that the pellets are too big for the Betta's mouth. Ironically, most big fish food companies don't realize that Betta fish have smaller mouths than, say, goldfish or others. Yes, that is one issue that I have with the pellets and flakes. A lot of the times, more so the pellets, they're just too big, and so the Betta is trying to spit it out and trying to get it just kind of waterlogged before it can break it up and eat it. I like to feed my Bettas with the natural frozen food because, number one, it's easy to digest, it's easy to eat, it's already hydrated, so it's not dry at all. It's not going to expand more in their stomach. It's just better all around. As far as having to scoop up extra food, if you're feeding your Betta good food and your Betta likes it, and you're watching and kind of putting a little bit more in and waiting for him to eat before you add anything more, you're not going to have any extra food. I've never had to worry about that. Now, if you're a person that is prone to dumping in a lot of flakes or pellets, then yes, your Betta will likely, once they get soggy enough, your Betta's not going to be interested anymore. So it's much more likely to have a lot of leftover food in an instance like this. They do give a few more tips here, so if you want to read the rest, I'll pause, but let's go ahead and move on. Ooh, here we have a Betta jumping. Turn feeding time into a little enrichment exercise. Put a straw in the tank and watch your Betta to see if he or she gets used to it. If he or she does, and you have leftover Betta food, place one of the leftover pellets in the tank. Place the straw over it so that it is inside the straw. Hold the straw over the fish and wait for him or her to find it. After your Betta finds it, he or she will follow it. You can then slowly lift the straw up to the top of the tank until the food pops out and your Betta will eat it. That's interesting. I've never done that before. What I'll do is I'll take some tweezers and I'll take a little bloodworm that I have and I'll just kind of move it around the tank a little bit and they'll chase it. They'll swim after it because, I mean, they can see it wiggling in the water. So if you want to play a little game of chase while you're feeding them, that's a better way to do it. Keeping the Betta tank clean, ensure your Betta is properly acclimated. Betta fish are only hardy to a particular water type, such as a certain water hardness and pH. It takes them a while to acclimate to a new environment, and this process is stressful for the Betta. Allow your Betta to fully acclimate before making any changes to their new home. Yes, absolutely. Bettas thrive best in an already cycled tank with a filter. There are many symptoms of dirty water, such as fin rot. Not to worry, the problem is easily treatable. Be sure to always add a dechlorinator when adding new water, and make sure that the water you're changing is the same temperature as the old water the Betta was in to avoid temperature shock. This is true, and it's honestly really easy to do, especially if you're filling your water from the tap. You can just add a little bit. You can turn up the warm and the cold until you get it just lukewarm. And once you've been keeping a Betta for a while, you're going to be able to just feel when it's right with your finger. It might take a little getting used to, but for me now, if I'm just cleaning my Betta tank and I'm getting some new water, all I have to do is just touch it, and I can gauge about the same temperature so that it doesn't stress my Betta when I add new water. That is a really good point. And here they're going to talk about probably test kits, which are really important. Test the water weekly. Yes, testing the water weekly is a good idea. And this will allow you to monitor your aquarium and take readings. Follow the instructions for testing provided by the manufacturer. Place notes in your calendar or diary to remind yourself that it's time to test and change the water. Yes, generally for a 5-gallon tank, I will change about 50% of the water every week. You can do it every other week if you have a good cycle tank that has a lot of live plants. That will keep the water safe for your Betta, but a lot of that kind of varies on how big the tank is, how many fish are in there, what the bioload is like. There are a lot of factors to consider when you're deciding how often to change the water in your Betta tank. Ongoing enjoyment. Have fun with your new friend. Betta fish come to recognize their owners. They will actually learn faces and even simple games. That's true, they are smart fish. Betta fish are very curious and often develop a strong bond with their caretaker. They can even beg for food by swimming up and down in the tank. I don't know what it's called, what Walter does, but see, he likes to come up to me and flare at me every time I come up to the tank like he's just offended, seriously offended. I don't know what you call that. I don't know if flaring is an ideal way of begging, but it's kind of funny. It's just what he does. He's just so silly. I've never had a Betta that flared at me every time I went up to the glass, but Walter does. Play with your Betta fish. I'll really skip through this article. If you want to pause and read this, you can, but essentially, yeah, you can play with your Betta fish. But probably one of the best ways to do that is just to come up to the tank and just sit with your Betta, especially if you want to get him used to you and just watch him interact with you. Every now and then you can also get a little mirror and practice flaring if your Betta doesn't just flare at you when you go up to the tank. You can do that, but never leave a mirror in the tank for a long amount of time. That leads to a lot of stress and can really make your Betta sick. It looks like we have some facts, and this is the last part of the article, so if you want to kind of sit and read through them, you can pause this video. And that is it for this article. So on the topic of keeping Betta fish, I feel like they got a pretty knowledgeable person to write this. I am actually very impressed. I don't really know what I was expecting to see, but all of the things addressed were really, really good, apart from the depiction of a Betta bull and then telling people that the minimum was 2.5 gallons and then showing that it really should be 5. That could be a little bit confusing to some people, but for the most part, this was very, very accurate, and I am very impressed. I hope that you were able to get something from this video. If you learned something new, or if you have more tips or tricks to add for anyone who is just now getting into the hobby, stick those in the comments so this can kind of become a wealth of information and knowledge for the people who need it. Before I go, I just wanted to thank you to everyone who is watching and enjoying my videos, who's commenting and providing feedback, and helping me get my watch time up. I have actually just been able to get partially monetized, so I'm not all the way there just yet. I'm still waiting until I can get to 4,000 watch hours, which I've just crossed 3,000. But I am now able to have the super chat. I think I just unlocked the thanks section, which is where people can send you money, something like that. Not very familiar with it, but the whole point is I am partially there to being completely monetized, and I'm very excited about that. So thank you if you've been sticking around with me for a while. I really appreciate it. And I'm having a lot of fun getting to help so many people with a hobby that I am very, very passionate about. If this is your first time here, consider sticking around, hitting the thumbs up, hitting subscribe so that YouTube will know who else to push this video out to. If you are not a member of my free Facebook group, the Betta Fish Forum, go join it. I'm having more and more people join by the day. I'm actually surprised because I'm usually getting around 20 or more people requesting entry every day, so it's growing like crazy. You definitely want to be in there right now. It's a great place to ask questions and share your Betta with other people who love them just like you. With that said, friend, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. God bless, and I will see you soon.